I'm Despina Katsikakis. I'm head of occupier business performance at Cushman & Wakefield. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how occupiers are changing and what the impact of the workplace is on business performance. I think it's important to frame the context of change because it's been quite significant in the last few years. We're seeing several things happening. Organizations are becoming much more agile and reliant on dispersed talent networks and open source innovation, which requires their real estate to move from fixed long-term to much more flexible and on-demand to support unpredictable business requirements. The second thing that's happening is that technology-enabled work is blurring the boundaries across traditional sectors within the industry because everyone is competing for the same type of talent because they're trying to innovate on technology platforms. So when we start thinking about talent, that's also changed significantly. We have 4 generations at work, soon to be 5 generations at work. And we talk quite a lot about millennials. And whilst all of these generations might have varying priorities and characteristics, they're all aligned on a number of themes. And I think that's where performance of the workplace becomes really interesting. So the themes that they all agree on is that across the board, people want flexibility and choice of how, when, and where to work. They want greater transparency and more connection to their employer. They want to focus on knowledge sharing and to grow themselves and be part of a community, a knowledge community. They want convenience and support for their life at work. And finally, and very significantly, they want their employer to be concerned and to support their well-being at work. So all of these elements are beginning to create some significant sets of requirements. Historically, real estate and the workplace has been measured on efficiency, on making the most out of the space. And if we begin to think about what that means from an OPEX point of view, space is typically about 10% of the total operational expenditure, and about 80% sits on people costs. Now, ironically, those people where we spend most of the operational costs of the business, according to Gallup every year, 70% of them are disengaged and disenfranchised at work. So we're spending a lot of money on people, but we're not getting the most out of them. Productivity is at a historical low around the globe. Absenteeism and stress-related illnesses are costing corporations billions. In the UK alone, 55% of people say that their workplace has negatively impacted their well-being, which is very, very significant elements for us to be considering. And it's quite easy to see how using the workplace to drive even small improvements on engagement and on well-being can make a significant business impact. So how do we go about that? We certainly know that technology today enables us to work anywhere, and flexible working practices are definitely here to stay. But I do think that the role of face-to-face interaction and a place to go will not go away. The question is, what is that place about? How do we create compelling places that people want to go to and feel inspired to be at? And they feel connected with others in meaningful ways, connected to their business in meaningful ways, and they're learning when they're there. So we're talking about a different type of workplace than rows of desks and faceless interiors that we've had for years and years. So one is around creating experiences that make people want to be at work. The second layer is when actually people do go to work, we should be designing workplaces that are designed around active design principles. So they help motivate people to move around, to undertake different tasks in the right functional environments that support those tasks. If we want to concentrate, we want to be able to be in a space to concentrate. There's something like a 66% drop in productivity when people are disrupted in the middle of trying to do a concentrated task. So being able to go to places to concentrate effectively, being able to collaborate effectively through both a variety of face-to-face environments as well as immersive technologies and virtual collaboration will be critical. Also, the environmental qualities of that space, the quality of the air, has a major impact in our cognitive function. The quality of the lighting, the ability to incorporate circadian lighting that mirrors nature and allows us to be able to leave work not exhausted through this artificial blue light, but actually able to get good quality sleep, will benefit the way that we actually are working the following day and the way we feel in our life in general. Being connected with nature, bringing plants and nature into the workplace is significant. People report an over 65% drop in stress by being exposed to a garden for 15 minutes. So quite significant improvements can be made by designing places where people can go to contemplate, to refresh, to be near nature, and to have a variety of different experiences at work. So when we look at effectiveness and productivity and engagement in the workplace, I think where we're getting to is shifting the metrics. We still want to drive efficiency, but rather than just making the most of the space, we want to actually make the best use of time and information as well. So efficiency should be around not wasting time, not having wasted space, not having inadequate policies that actually get in the way of people working well. So it's a much more comprehensive way of looking at efficiency. The second metric that drives operational and business performance is effectiveness. So how do we make the most out of people? How do we support people to do their best work? Through some of the things I mentioned before, having choice and control of the environments within which they work, having the right tools and services to do their work, being able to actually recharge, refresh, focus, and putting in place the right sort of conditions for people to feel connected with the business. Which brings us to the third metric, which I think is probably in some ways the newest and most interesting, which is how do we create engaging workplaces? So how do workplaces begin to look and feel like great places to work, support well-being and performance, reflect corporate culture? Funny enough, I tend to say to organizations that your workplace is constantly reflecting your culture and values. You can choose to manage that message or not. And if you choose to manage it, it impacts recruitment, it impacts retention, and most importantly, it begins to actually impact a vibrant culture that drives innovation and performance in a significantly different way. So in some ways, I think you can say that the workplace as we know it is a sort of untapped resource for corporations to use to drive productivity, to drive efficiency, to drive well-being, and to bring together those elements. It cannot just come out of the corporate real estate function. It requires corporate real estate to be aligned with HR, with tech, with comms, and very significantly, it requires visionary leadership that will recognize the resource of the workplace to drive effective business performance.